Good morning and welcome to our webinar today hosted by Norcal PTAC. It is entitled Introduction to Government Contracting with the County of Santa Clara, California. So my name is James Forrest. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal PTAC. I'll talk about what that is in a second. Our main presentation today will be given by Leonard Bean, a procurement specialist at Norcal PTAC. So you're in great hands with him. And before then, we're going to hear from one of our collaborators, Jean Clark, the Chief Procurement Officer with the County of Santa Clara. And then for the Q&A section, we'll have some panelist support here from a couple other folks from the County of Santa Clara who are excellent partners for this webinar: Leticia Gordon, County-wide Contracting Policy Analyst, and Catherine Vasarlov, who is the manager. So real quick, I'm going to talk about PTAC for a second. If you've been on one of our webinars before, you've heard this spiel. So feel free to tune out for 5 seconds, but Norcal PTAC stands for the Northern California Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and we are a very cool resource for businesses in our service area because everything we offer is free and we help you win government contracts if you are so inclined and prepared to do so. So this is our service area on the right. You see this green map, these 15 counties. If you have a business located in that area, you are eligible for our services. If you're not in that area, there's 2 things you can do, and you still want PTAC services once you hear about them. The first is use that link at the bottom, aptac-us, find a PTAC. There's 100 PTACs across the country. We are just one of a network of independently run nonprofit centers. So you can find a different PTAC. There's 7 in California. So for those of you who are joining from Newport Beach, for instance, you can also just join all of our webinars. So, there was no litmus test for how to get into this webinar. Always free to everyone from anywhere, no matter what your business status is, etc. However, if you'd like to be a client of ours, you should have a business in our service area. It should be established, preferably well established, with at least a couple quarters of sales and ready to do bidding on government contracts. That is the qualification for being in our program as a client. So what do you get if you sign up as a client? Well, in 2020, our clients won more than $500 million in government contracts to $500 million, and that number goes up every year. And we do this we help our clients win these contract dollars in a number of ways. The main bread and butter of what we do is with one-on-one counseling. So for instance, Lenny Bean here is a procurement specialist. You could apply, and if his expertise match up with what you need help with, I'll assign you to Lenny, and you two will work out a time to go over whatever it is your business needs to do in order to get into the contracting world to be competitive. So maybe that's do some market research, get your certifications, learn about how to submit bids, bid submittals, how to review all sorts of packets, bid compliance, cybersecurity, all sorts of issues. So those are things that you can go over with your procurement specialist once you're accepted, one-on-one, phone, video, email, whatever works. And we can also set you up with that second option there. That's a custom bid matching profile. It's something we pay for and then offer to you for free. So that's pretty neat. Basically what it does is it scrapes the internet looking for bids that match the criteria that you've worked out with your procurement specialist, and then it sends them right in your inbox. So it's a neat, tidy list with hyperlinks and everything, and you can click on all those opportunities, and they are available to you much quicker than if you had to go and look at them for yourself. So that's a pretty neat thing. And of course, as I said before, we're always putting on resources and trainings and webinars like this one and partnering with our community. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. If you have any questions for us, for me, you have contact information down there on the bottom of all these slides. It's the number 707-267-7561 and info@norcalptech.org. You can sign up on our website. That's where you get started. You'll see a red apply now button at the top. So if you have any questions, let me know. We love to hear from our clients. So let's hand things over here to Jean, who will get things started. So Jean, you could go ahead and there we go. All right, Jean Clark with the County of Santa Clara, folks. Jean's going to give an introduction before we hand things over to Lenny. I'm going to talk a bit about Santa Clara.
James, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending here. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer for the County of Santa Clara, and I'll go over some high-level information here for our county. Our wonderful county. Our population here hovers just around 2 million people at 1.9. We have over 22,000 people right now. We hover between 22 and 23,000 employees. And our budget for this year, which we're working on coming up is 9.7 billion, of which 3.8 billion, pushing 4 billion, is for supplies, services, fixed assets, construction, capital projects, which is a pretty healthy spend for our county. Next slide, please. Our mission is a plan for the needs of a dynamic community, providing quality services, health, safety. We've all been through COVID, hasn't been easy. Thank you for our staff, our disaster workers. We put a whole bunch of effort into responding through our Emergency Operations Center and all of our departments in the community. Over 35 agencies providing a wide range of services. We have Parks Department, we have Public Works with those big capital projects. We have a minor construction program. We have airport and roads. We have a big justice program with the sheriff, probation, DA's office, affordable housing, behavioral sciences, and we have 3 hospitals in our county. So we're very busy on that front. Obviously with COVID, we were very busy. So that's just a snapshot of our agencies. Next slide, please. This is our Board of Supervisors for our county. There's 5 representing different districts. The procurement department interfaces with those supervisors and their aides on a weekly basis. All kinds of things come through procurement to work with the board on what we procure, with the vendor community, with particular legislation files that go through that we often work on. So good to know. Here, I would invite you to look at this website here, this link. There'll be more about that later, about who your board supervisors might be. They're pretty active, and you'll find them responsive if you reach out to them. Next slide. Our board is committed to open and competitive solicitations and contracting. We really do want to ensure fairness, objectivity, transparency, provide the most cost-effective use of our taxpayer dollars. That 9.7 billion is a lot of money, so we really work hard to make sure we're trying to distribute that fairly. We've also got a lot of initiatives around social and environmental awareness. As you might imagine, we've got a sustainability program and all kinds of programs that feed into small business. So depending on what your niche might be, we offer a lot of things that I would think you'd be interested in. We'll talk more about that process later in the presentation. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to add just a couple more things, if I may. I'll keep this high level. Committed to diversity and inclusion. We have a minority business program, women-owned, disabled, veterans, LGBT, to make sure we reach out through our diversity. We have a DBE program in conformance with regulations. We really want to attract minority-owned, women-owned, disadvantaged businesses. And also, we're going to see, as a little bit later, you'll see a daily registration support and guidance, including hosting. So we're here for you to reach out. Again, more on the presentation. So I want to thank you for joining us here at County Santa Clara for more detail in a little bit. We look forward to providing you with more learning opportunities. Be on the lookout for our trainings. We offer a bunch of them. And we have a newsletter as well, so we'll talk about that. And now I'll hand it back over to PTAC. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Gene, for taking the time out of your morning to join and introduce us to your office. So thank you. And thanks to the County of Santa Clara for partnering with this webinar. We're always happy to have important community partners, such as yourselves. So Leticia and Catherine, at least, and perhaps Jean, will be sticking around for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please, for County of Santa Clara, please put them in the Q&A as soon as they pop in your head, and we'll get to them. And just a real quick housekeeping note for those of you who may have missed it in the beginning, if you want to network or you have a technical issue, you can put it in the chat. If you have a question that you'd like read aloud about the content, try to keep it concise and put it in the Q&A tab, and we'll read it aloud as time permits. All right, it is time for the main presentation by Lenny Bean, who is our procurement specialist, our longest serving procurement specialist here at Norcal APEX, and we're very happy to have him with the main presentation. So go ahead and take it away, Lenny. I believe you can just take control. Uh-oh.
No problem.
And we lost the screen share there. If you can see that.
We good?
No, we don't see anything. So you have to click on screen share and then click screen 1 or 2. There we go, but we see a website. All right.
That's our website.
All right, it's Jim.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I assume everybody can see the slides. Okay.
Yep, I can see it.
So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can see it just fine.
Okay. So here are the topics we're going to run through today. A lot of this is going to be kind of on a high level, but again, as James was saying, feel free to reach out to our organization and register, and we'll be happy to help you. So we're going to talk about what government contracting is. Is your business ready to get into government contracting? The various certifications and some procurement activities around certifications, how to find those opportunities and get started. Opportunities and requirements of Santa Clara County will be towards the end, and then we'll go do a recap. So government purchase literally everything. There is nothing I could ever find that they don't buy or don't need, given the breadth of government. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. There are 3 main levels: local, state, and federal. And when you think of local, state, and federal, the local in this case with Santa Clara County, the state would be the state of California, and obviously the federal government. But don't leave out things like, believe it or not, schools, cities, towns, prisons. They're all federal businesses, if you will, and each one of them has their own specific needs and wants. So when you're doing your research, don't ignore all of those smaller fiefdoms, if you will. 2 main types of contracts: prime contracts and subcontracts. Don't ignore being a subcontract to a large prime contractor, particularly those prime contractors that are already in the government space. They already have contracts, and a lot of the prime contracts, the larger businesses are required to have small businesses as their subcontracts in order to get the prime contract. So U.S. government, largest buyer of goods and services. There's 23% of all procurements by the federal government are mandated by law to go small business. And typically they exceed that 23% year over year. Annual spending, it's like $600 billion out there, and it's $138 billion for small businesses. In the state of California, back in FY 18-19, it was $2.2 billion to small businesses. And then local governments spend more nationwide than the federal government. You add up all the local governments, it's larger than what the US government buys. Government agencies will set aside contracts for small and diverse businesses and set contracting diversity goals. Gene had mentioned some of the potential set aside contracts for Santa Clara County. And if you all, particularly all government agencies, will have some type of small business set aside. It could be just a set aside for small businesses, or it could be specific like woman-owned, veteran-owned, etc. So, are you ready to do this? Are you an established business? You can be a startup, all right? You can be a startup, but it is more difficult. If you are a startup, you need to do a lot of the market research to make sure you're going after this market in the right way. But establish the business. Do you have a business plan? Have you looked at government contracting as part of that business plan? And can you afford to sell to the government? Typically, whether it's not getting paid for 45 days after you complete your task, or the amount of energy you're going to have to spend to target that market. Does your company have a history of sales? Past performance is key in the government marketplace. The more past performance you have, the better off you are, because the confidence level builds that you can perform the work. Again, if you are a startup, what's your bio look like? What have you done? What's your resume look like? Does it give them the confidence that you can do the job? Market research is big. If you got to do the market research, you can't go after the entire government marketplace. Get it focused down. Is it local? Is it schools? Is it the federal government? Is it the Department of Defense? Each one of those areas will have a different level of energy you have to put into it. Are you e-commerce capable? And do you have a website? A lot of people think that websites are just not really required anymore. They're big. If you need to have that as part of your business so that the government can go and look at that website. E-commerce capable, things like accepting credit cards. Sounds pretty basic, but as an example, the federal government, they use credit cards to pay you for your work up to some significant dollar amounts, depending on what you do. So you need to be capable to have a credit card, website, etc. So if you looked at all of that, and you still want to go on, define who your customer is going to be. So when you look at the federal government, can you take advantage of any of those set aside for small businesses? The SBA has the 8A Small Disadvantaged Business Program for minorities. There's a hub zone, and that stands for Historically Underutilized Business Geographic Area, okay? And there are certain qualifications to get defined as a hub zone. The WSB, Women-Owned Small Business, and Economic Disadvantaged Women-Owned Small Business is another area. If you're a woman-owned business, you own 51% of the business, let's talk. The Veterans Administration right now does the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business and Veteran-Owned Small Business certifications. And oh, by the way, the SBA is going to take that over in January of 2023. SAM stands for System for Management, and that is where you register your business to do business with the federal government. And we also assist in that process. The California e-Procure, the state of California has small business enterprises and disabled veteran, and they have a specific process you go through to get those certifications. The Department of Transportation, like Caltrans, they have the DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and the MBE, and the WBE certifications you can get. And again, they set aside procurements for those specific areas. So for example, at the County of Humboldt, got to check certification, registration requirements, individually with cities and counties. One of the things is when you're defining your service and product, there's a whole variety of codes out there. There's a lot of cities and counties use what's known as the UNSPSC codes. The federal government use the NICS codes, and they're I believe the city of San Francisco uses NIGP codes. So there's a lot. So once you target who you're going to, your marketplace, You want to understand your codes, get the right codes in your registrations so that you can be invited to bid. So certifications have to hold 51% of the company. Do you control the day-to-day operations? Do you have the final say? Do you hold the necessary licenses? Do you, as a small business, do you fall within the state small business guidelines for the state of California? And as established by your NICS code for federal work. So there's a process you go through to define whether or not you're a small business, do you fall within the guidelines, and then get those applications in. So benefits of certification, the government happens to be the most reliable customer. They typically pay their bills because they have the funds, they have released their budgets, and so they're a reliable customer. It helps set your company apart when you have certifications. You get access to set-aside contracts and sole source contracts. So for example, if as an 8A minority-owned company for the federal government, the SBA in the first 4 years of that 9-year program identifies sole source contracts that you can pursue. And also in the women-owned small business certification, they have sole source opportunities. But if it is set aside for a small business, what that means is big businesses can't compete against you. You are competing against other small businesses or other women-owned or veteran-owned, et cetera. Prime contractors, they have to fulfill participation goals. Give you an example. If you look at some of the large laboratories that are run by private companies, so Sandia Labs, Lawrence Livermore Labs, they're up in the 40+% that they have to procure from small businesses in order to keep their funds going. And that's the oversight on that is pretty heavy. Offers support through additional government programs. There's a mentor protege program at the federal level where a large business can assist a small business in getting into the government contracting arena. And the large business, what they get out of it is they are able to bid as a small business for several programs. However, they are responsible for getting that small business on their feet and successful in the government contracting space. So talk a little bit more about federal procurement, 600 billion government contracts, 23% to small business. So if you get those certifications like the woman-owned and the veteran-owned, et cetera, it decreases your pool of competition. And oh, by the way, I wouldn't, even though it decreases your pool of competition, look for other companies that are similar to yours. You're a small business, perhaps you're a disabled veteran-owned business. Look for working together to go after some of these opportunities. It lowers the risk to the government if there is a pool or if you are not so much as a joint venture per se, but as a team, you would be more successful because you present less risk to the government. Set-asides, we talked about those for like small business and veteran-owned, women-owned, et cetera. Sole source opportunities in some of those programs, the mentor protege, which I mentioned, teaming opportunities. I'm big on teaming. I connect a lot of my clients to other clients to see if they can work together to go after some of these contracts as a team. And so, for example, if you have 2 women-owned businesses that have been certified, if that woman could subcontract out to 50% of the work. However, if you have 2 women working together, they can share in the entire 100% of the contract. And it's increased visibility among government buyers. Government buyers have goals to meet their small business goals. In the federal government, they'll have the whole 23% of all small businesses. And then there are specific percentages for women-owned, veteran-owned, 8A minority, hub zone, et cetera. So it gives you that visibility among those government buyers to, and that's part of your marketing plan to show them that you have these certifications. Regulations, the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulation. We help you get through these. We don't expect you to understand all of this, but there's a code of federal regulations. It's going to create uniform policies and procedures across all agencies. And all of your bids, your RFPs, your contract will reference FAR clauses as they outline the rules. You got to read them. Make sure you read them, make sure you understand them. And a lot of times you will have, and there's two major parts I want to mention, Part 12 and Part 30. So what you want is in Part 12 is commercial contracting, and that would be more attractive to small businesses. And a lot of what the federal government does is on a commercial contracting basis. However, there are FAR clauses that are in FAR Part 12 as well. FAR Part 31, that is driven more on where the government has more visibility into how your business works and requires a lot more energy on your part to meet those contract obligations. Government buys everything. I saw a whole list of people that were joining this webinar today. A lot of you would look like you would fit into one of these areas. And so if you are, say, in research and development, or you're in transportation, or you're in custodial, you can focus in on that and look for those opportunities, as well as contracts that have already been awarded. If you want to look at all of those, look at what agencies are buying what, excuse me, and look at the history, look at trends, and then target where you want to get registered with and to get on their bidders list. So there's federal supply schedules, blanket purchase agreements, you will see those occasionally. The indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts, those are typically 10-year programs where perhaps you would have a product or a service with rates per hour that you would negotiate for the life of those contracts. We also have sole source contracts. And some of the sole source contracts are either driven by those certifications, like an 8A minority certified business or a women-owned small business, but it's also driven by, there are certain companies that have produced a product. That's the only place the government can get from it, and they will announce that this will be sole sourced and not competed on this particular item or service. The simplified acquisition threshold, typically, I think that's up to about 200,000 or below now, or it might even be at 250 now. But anything with the simplified acquisition threshold, that's where you get your FAR Part 12, commercial contracting, a lot of use of credit cards to buy what you do is done at that simplified acquisition threshold. Expedites the process. So federal certifications, we talked about the women-owned. And by the way, we're finding that these certifications like women-owned, services, say veteran-owned business, once the federal government through the SBA, as an example, has certified this is a women-owned small business, where you're finding a lot of counties, cities, et cetera, accept that as the certification for their set-asides. Not in all cases, but it seems to be a trend that's going on. Rather than running their own program and spending their own energy and staffing to do a certification, if the federal government's already doing it, it doesn't make sense for them to duplicate the process. Again, the 8A Business Development Program, 9-year program for minority-owned businesses. And there are certain rules to get into those programs. Hub zone, those geographic areas where the government hasn't spent a lot of money. And by the way, if you can go to the hub zone map, if you find you're in a hub zone, you really want to go after this one, because in the hub zone area is the one area on a percentage basis. I think it's like 3.5% of everything the federal government buys has to be with a hub zone. Well, year over year, they're only at like half, like 1.5%. So when I talk to buyers, et cetera, they're always asking, well, do you have any hub zone businesses that can do this to meet those goals? And then, of course, the service disabled veteran owned small business. Let me talk about that for a second. So today is the Veterans Administration is the one that is doing these certifications. In January of 2023, the SBA is going to take that over. Now, that being said, the service disabled veteran today is a check the box in the SAM registration with the federal government. And it's accepted for all federal agencies except the VA, Veterans Administration, and the FAA. Both of those agencies require you to get certified through the Veterans Administration program called CVE. So a year from now, in January 2023, when the SBA starts doing these, it won't be a check in the box for all of the federal government. You will have to get certified as a service disabled veteran or veteran-owned small business with the SBA. So things are changing in that certification process for veterans. So System for Award Management, this is SAM, and this is where you register to do business with the federal government. You define your NAICS codes, you get a DUNS number, register with SAM. Be wary of scammers. Once you get registered in SAM, you check the box that you don't want your information shared, and guess what? Nobody can see you, which is not a good thing from a marketing point of view. So you're not going to want to do that. However, once you get registered in SAM, it's public information. People can search and look for you, and you'll get a lot of offers to help you do things like market your business or connect you with other things, help you with your certifications, etc. Some of these businesses are very good at what they do. One of the things we'll do for you, forward us the email, we'll check it out and see if it's legit. And then you complete your small business profile. Once you're registering in the SAM system, you click a link, and this is the dynamic small business search. This is where you can find your competitors, the small businesses. All small businesses registered with the federal government and SAM will show up on the dynamic small business search. In there, you want to make sure your profile is up to date so that if a contracting officer is looking for your business type, they may search on a NAICS code, they may search on a veteran owned or a woman owned, or a specific NAICS code. So you want to be found in there. You want to make sure your profile is up to snuff and search it, because you will find your competitors, potential partners, all these other small business information. And we can help you show you how to search through that system. been around a long time. State procurement. $2.2 billion in contracts by the state in California. The top 6 spend transportation, general services, corrections, I mentioned prisons before, rehab, Department of Water Resources, state hospital, Cal Recycle for emergencies. And you can see the breakout there on the chart. So and these are the mandatory department share of small business contract dollars by category. That was back in 17-18. And it's now changed slightly. But there are focused areas for small business. This is a whole list of what the state buys. And this is helpful because if you register with Cal e-Procures, where you would register to do business with the state of California, notice the codes. Notice the codes. And you can, before you go into what I recommend, before you go into registering your business in Cal e-Procure, is go to unspsc.org and get all of your codes together. It's much more efficient. So small business is defined by the state of California as your revenue is less than 15 million a year and you have less than 100 employees. And small businesses for the purpose of public works, however, it grows to $15 to $36 million per year and under 200 employees, you're treated as a small business. Disabled veteran business enterprise, it's business owned, managed by U.S. military veterans with 10% or more service-connected disability rating. And that's currently the process where you go through that certification process online. So we have an educational video that you can click on once you access our slides and view that general services small business certification video to get a better idea. And as a reminder, we help you go through those certifications because some of them can be fairly daunting, if you will, and lots of information required. So disadvantaged business enterprise, DBE, we hear this all the time. It's to ensure that disadvantaged business firms can compete fairly for federally funded transportation-related projects, because the Department of Transportation within each state, the majority of those funds come from the federal government as part of the federal government's budget, and a lot of projects within those within the Department of Transportation is focused on those that do roads, bridges, and that type of construction. And so what they want to do is make sure they get their disadvantaged business firms involved to help do those projects. And we have a brochure. And by the way, a lot of these things are on our website. I don't know if James mentioned it, but norcalptac.org. We have a lot of this information on how to do these things. Utility companies, they have procurement goals as well. And they have a 15% goal for minority-owned businesses, 5% for women, and 1.5% for service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. The website there, the clearinghouse, and where you can apply. Local contracting. We'll talk a little bit more about Santa Clara in a few minutes. But this is a great way to get in. If you live in a specific city or county, you're starting a business, you want to get into government contracting. Wow, it's right. A lot of times it's right there in front of you to get in, get your feet wet. and gain some performance experience. They want you to do business with them. It's local taxes. You're going to be paying taxes on your business, and if you do more business with them, then the taxes flow back. So it's in everybody's best interest to do local contracting. So there's a lot of different business preferences right now. For example, like LBE certifications. Check in your county and city first. See if they accept the state of California small business certification. Sometimes some of them do, so you don't have to go through that process. And we have the links there. But in any event, whether you have the certifications or not, register with your local city you live in and local counties you do business in, and register in their procurement system. Make sure you have your codes correct, and so that if something comes up, an opportunity comes up in those counties or cities, you get notified. So at the state level, you go to Cal eProcure, you can search with that database, and also register for email alerts. Again, pay attention to those codes you select, because that's how they're going to base it. In the federal, and actually the beta has gone away now, and it's just SAMgov. This is where they've taken this SAM system now and pulled everything together into one place. So you can register to do business with the federal government. You can get email alerts for upcoming contracts. And you can follow opportunities. You can search for opportunities. You can search for contract awards, okay, which is helpful in developing your market. So that would be on the federal level. So local, it varies. Some local companies use particular systems to get registered for upcoming opportunities, and others might have their homegrown systems. And for smaller purchases, market yourself. Knock on those doors. And I should mention that in some of the very smaller towns and regions of the United States, they still post their opportunities in legal notices in newspapers. So one of the things that our bid match services will scrape from that system called bidnoticeads.com. We'll scrape from that system so you can be aware of that there's an opportunity out there. So County of Santa Clara. So all those on from Santa Clara, jump in if I missed this up. So these are the types of things that the County of Santa Clara is looking to fulfill. On the commodities, you can see the technology, healthcare, furniture, construction materials, food. From services, all types of professional services, variety of health and human services, legal consulting services, telecommunication services, construction, education, training, janitorial, and custodial. So all of these are the commodities and services that they focus on to fulfill the operation of the county. So here's a snapshot of some upcoming opportunities. So the first thing you want to do is register with the county. We'll talk about that in a second. And so here's some of the commodities they're showing here, everything from plumbing services to janitorial supplies and promotional items, services, case management, animal and pests, medical waste, valet, etc. So these are the upcoming opportunities, and upcoming, I'm assuming, is within the next few months. So sign up for the newsletter. I think they mentioned, Gene mentioned that earlier. They have a newsletter, and that way you'll stay informed with any procurement updates. You can learn of upcoming business opportunities, register for those events, and register for the events and trainings. I hate to predict this, but hopefully we're over this whole COVID thing. But it's going to be so much better to be able to obviously see people in person rather than through this Zoom meeting we're having today. Although that's a good in-between way of reaching out to people. But register for those events. And if they hold trainings on how to do business with them, attend the trainings. Not only do you learn something, but you get to meet some of those people that you would eventually perhaps be dealing with. So step one, register. There's two systems. There's Periscope, S2G, and Ariba, where you can register, identify your commodity codes and your UNSPC codes, which we had talked about, and just go to the vendor registration page for guides on how to go through this. That would be your first step, register. And then you can review active contracts in there as well. So it gives you an idea of the types of contracts they have. And you also can look for your competitors there. And then you can learn more about the forecast. They publish a forecast and you can go in there and see more information on that forecast and perhaps which department is driving a particular piece of that forecast. And therefore you know who to reach out to get more information. And feel free to work with your local PTAC counselor. And we have, I believe there's 6 counselors now, and we assist in the Norcal, Northern California area. We support all of those counties, cities, federal contracts, et cetera, and provide assistance for small business. So here's for example, the Planning Commission, and it shows where there's some upcoming meetings you can attend. So choose your meeting group, and want to get that forecast, view their agendas, and follow up. Don't just go to the training, follow up after that. Find something, make those connections. So the participate in the procurement process. As you can see at the note at the bottom, 5% local preference for local vendors. In almost all cities and counties do that. There'll be requests for quotations, invitation to bid, informal competitive procurements, and requests for proposals. And so for most of those, the ITBs and our request for proposals, there's a 5% local preference for local vendors. So get registered with all entities whom you might want to do business. Do your market research to see who your target market is and where you want to get registered. Get certified if eligible, but only do it if it's relevant. If you are finding a particular city or county or perhaps a school system, and they could care less whether or not you have a small business certification, but that's your market, it may not make sense to waste your time spinning your wheels, getting that certification. So do the research, know who your competitors are, do some research and see who received contracts for what you did before. And we can help you, get you those links and everything so you can do those searches. And familiarize yourself with the agency reps who purchase what you sell. Relationship building is still the key. Whether you go to the same hairdresser, you go to the same plumber, it's been built on a relationship, and trust, etc. It's that we're human beings, and that's how we operate. So don't be afraid to start with city, county, state, or subcontracting to boost your past performance record. One of the things I've found is that they'll go all the way through. They'll get their certifications for small business done. They'll get it all ready to go, and they don't bid. So keep in mind that if you never bid, you never get anything. But there's kind of this, well, I'm not really sure. Well, I encourage people, in order to get into the game, you got to get those bids in, be comfortable, never ever lose money on these bids. But at the same time, even if you don't get the bid, then you can ask for a debrief, and they will spend time with you explaining why you didn't get the job. If you win, then you ask for a debrief. Why did I win? What did you like about my proposal, and things like that. Keep that relationship building going through the bidding process as well. And last but not least, contact us for free assistance. And free is kind of a misnomer. It's no cost. We don't charge you, but it's not free for you because it's your time that is going to be spent with us to help you do this. Here are some research sites for like getting your DUNS number, et cetera, doing searches, getting information from federal, California, and Santa Clara. Here's some upcoming events.
I'll just chime in real quick about that, just to pitch. Just want to pitch that we are having the next series of events we're doing is coming up pretty soon in just a while. The week of March 8th, 9th, and 10th, we're having a Women in Construction Week series. So this Women in Construction Week, so we're going to go over certifications overview for women-owned small businesses, how to find construction and public works bid opportunities with a bunch of folks from transportation agencies in the Bay Area. So that may be relevant for many of you. And then on the 3rd, we'll have our senior construction specialist, Ed Duarte, along with a whole panel of women-owned construction firms in the Bay Area represented and having a conversation. So hope you join for all of those, as well as our 8A business development program, which Lenny touched on briefly. That is on Thursday, March 24th. So you can see some of these are at 3 p.m., some of these are 10 a.m. Do check our calendar there, norcalptech.org/calendar. All of these are always free for everyone and for anyone to join, regardless of geographic location or business status. So we look forward to seeing you there. And I believe we got some time for questions here. We are running a little bit late. As you leave the webinar, if you need to leave early or right on time, but we're still answering Q&A, you're going to be redirected towards a survey. If you would like to let us know what you thought of today's webinar, then we can, we really love to hear what you have to say. It matters a lot to us. We can keep improving our services, and it matters a lot to our funders too. So please do answer that survey when you get the chance, and I'll drop it in the chat if I have a chance. But we do have a couple questions. So Lenny, if we could hit the Q&A slide here, just for thematic continuity. The first question comes from Mel San. What are sole source opportunities? And if Lenny, if you could advance the slides.
Advance, I'm sorry?
If you could advance the slide. Next slide. There we go. So what are sole source opportunities? Lenny, do you want to address that first?
Sure. So sole source opportunities, what they have defined is that this is the only company that can produce this particular good or service. You'll find that a lot, and particularly the Department of Defense, where you have, say, some export controlled items, et cetera, where they're going to identify that there's one manufacturer to produce this particular good or service. The other use of sole source is for example, the 8A Minority Development Program. So through the SBA, they will identify opportunities, and you will get a sole source award as an 8A contractor to get you started. And so they will actually, the SBA gets involved in coming up with those contracts that will be awarded on a sole source basis and not competed outside of the 8A program. So it's using those two areas.
Okay, great. So we have a question about public works. May not be, well, I'll go ahead and ask it and we can determine if it's something we can answer here or not. Anonymous attendees asking, we're trying to contract with public works. It was brought to our attention that we need to register with the DIR and get certified. Could you please address this if it's not in the presentation?
When the DIR, I'm not familiar with that term per se.
Department of Industrial Relations.
Okay, I would have to check to see if this is state or local level. If it's a state level, you would then you would need to get registered with the Department of Public Works and get registered, number one. But on the certification, and if you want, I can see if I can look up. Hey, Catherine's got an answer.
Yes, so we do require registration with the DIR.
And what about the certified?
Certification is not required unless it's applicable to the entities, but registration is.
Drop the DIR website in the chat here for everyone, just so we're aware. That's something that one of our procurement specialists would be able to help you out. We have a construction specialist named Ed Duarte who knows a lot about the DIR. So, all right, thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Lenny. Next question. Looks like there are several different certifications, and some are for federal contracts, state, county, public works, etc. Is there a grid or chart somewhere that lists out if you're interested in bidding with a certain government entity, which certifications you'll need? Do you know anything like that, Lenny?
Well, we had that grid on a previous slide, a summary grid for that.
For some of them on the federal level, right?
Yeah, the difficulty is here is a particular government entity, a city perhaps, they're going to be different than everybody else in the United States. And so you really have to look at each entity and what they follow for any certifications and registrations. They will all have a registration requirement for sure with their procurement office. But from the certifications, you would have to dig into that particular city or county. And feel free to contact us and we'll see if we can find out more information if there is a particular city or county you're interested in. But there's no large grid, if you will, of all of those. It would be fairly large.
I can point out that on our website, there's a tab called Resources. And under Resources, you can see Readiness Checklist, federal certifications, California contracting, Caltrans, local contracting. And this has information on different certifications and how to get prepared for each branch of contracting. So that may well scratch the itch that you're indicating here. We have an anonymous attendee asking, do they service food vendors? I'm not sure who they is referring to. Should we ask for a clarification on that question?
Yeah, I think so.
Perhaps they're asking if the County of Santa Clara buys food from vendors. I'm not sure.
If the question is if we buy from food vendors, we definitely do. And there's needs across the county. So we ask all vendors to register in both platforms. Again, that's Ariba and Periscope. And that ensures not only are you notified of solicitations, but departments will be able to query in those systems when they are looking for vendors within a specific industry or market.
Okay, great. And Paul Leroy is asking, are there any special requirements for Santa Clara County, such as the county IT department? I guess they're looking for special needs.
So any special requirements will be outlined in the specific solicitation. And so generally speaking, when we're talking about IT, more often than not, it'll be in a request for proposal. And there's specific sections in that request for proposal that will highlight any mandatory requirements, any additional specifications that are needed, whether it's for goods or for services. That includes insurance requirements, anything bonding, if that were needed, anything that is required by the county will be outlined in that specific solicitation. And there's nothing from a broad countywide perspective.
Okay, great. Any last questions here while we have the floor for Q&A before we'll hand things over to Santa Clara for a couple remarks? All right, Catherine, Leticia, do one of you want to say something to close it off?
I just want to thank everybody for attending today's event. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may think of after the event, and I'll go ahead and drop our general inbox email in the comments. And also just to remind everybody, a great resource for our vendors is our procurement site. Catherine, if you could drop that also in the chat, and it's probably in the slides. If not, we'll go ahead and make sure we add that to the slide deck before sending to everybody. So thank you. Thanks again, everybody, for attending today's event.
Thank you so much for everyone. And just a reminder that the slides as well as the video recording will be put to our website. I've put the link in the chat a number of times, so you'll be able to find it there. So thanks, Lenny, for putting all the research together. And thanks again to our partners with the County of Santa Clara for making it happen. So I'll see you guys next time.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.